Mingus with Danny Richmond is a 13-piece band. The second time I went to Birdland before they shut it down.
The real story is that he wormed his way in with Danny Richmond, and Danny Richmond recognised him at the airport and introduced him with Charlie Mingus, and that's why I'm in it. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I mean, this track that we've just done, I mean, really, you're trying to recreate, I think, what was probably, you know, half the band had ordered cabs and ready to leave, had raincoats and pork pie hats on, and Mingus sat down at the piano and started this thing off. And it sounds like everybody just sort of slowly cancelled that cab, or if they could afford it, they'd say, hold that cab. But they all sort of waltzed back in and joined in. It doesn't sound like a planned thing to me. It sounds like, you know, they'd done a couple of tracks with him playing bass and his fingers were sore, so he sat down at the piano and they just came out with Don't Drop That Atomic Bomb on Me, which is a very fair sentiment. You know, don't drop it on me either, baby.
You always played that sort of almost mad music. His music was very logical, but he was a sort of an edge player, you know. It was almost a cacophony, wouldn't it? His stuff. Well, you know, it's nearly mad. He was very early free jazz, it was. You know, the people he used in his band were, you know, Eric Dolphy, for example. All of them. Teddy Curzon. They're all very early free players, and he played very free, even for the late 50s, early 60s. Depth. It's not a depth. He was like the hippest thing when I was a kid to listen to. Didn't know what the fuck you were listening to. But it was like, yeah, I mean, and it is great, you know. I mean, Better Get It In Your Size, a classic record.
True.
Pork Pie Hat is one of the great, beautiful ballads.
That's why I said that about the raincoat and pork pie.
Yeah. Charles Mingus is to us
two brushes, blues and roots, roots and blues. To me, that's what I know about Charlie. Don't let him drop that bomb on me. Bosendorfer clanging.
Charles Mingus grew up in Los Angeles His early experience included work with, among others, Lee Young, Louis Armstrong, and Lionel Hampton. Beginning in the early 1950s, Mr. Mingus added to his national reputation through his work with Red Norval, Billy Taylor, Charlie Parker, Bud Powell, and Art Tatum.
I first met Charles in the early 1950s. I was doing a series of radio broadcasts from Storyville, a club in Boston. He came in with the Red Norval Trio. He was a sideman, but he filled the room all by himself. And he was an extraordinary bass player even then.
He was my husband. He was a musician. I thought he was good. I really liked to hear him play. And he wrote music. I had babies. I cooked. Musicians came in, rehearsed, and music grew. Well, he had told me once that, you understand that one woman is never enough for me. And I said, oh, yes, I understand that. I can live with that. And I don't even remember when I first learned about Sue.
I met Charles in a club in the Five Spot Cafe in 1964 during a period when jazz was really at its apex. I didn't know that he was the person I'd come to hear perform. I just saw this large man, so centered. It was almost like a meditative trance.
First time I ever laid eyes on Mingus, he was playing at an almost empty jazz club in Detroit called the Minor Key. And Mingus was there with his bass and his eyes. Now, these eyes of Mingus were, they were like reflective pools of his heart, of his emotions. They could not help but register whatever it was that he was feeling.
It was thrilling to watch, it was thrilling to be in the audience, and certainly the musicians performed in ways that hasn't been heard before or since. And he did everything to get the kind of music he wanted. He cajoled, he threatened, he hurled insults, he fired people and hired them back 10 minutes later. He used any method, any technique that he could to get results.
Or each time someone changed in his band, he would hear how they would play, and he would learn from that and utilize their favorite lick or whatever in some of his music. So he was like Duke Ellington in that respect. He felt very close to Eric Dolphy. You know, all of Mingus's music, one way or another, was speech. It was like a singing horn or a singing bass. There is literal conversation between Mingus and Dolphy.
My father had this tremendous musical and friendship relationship with Eric Dolphy, and he had died, I guess, 9 days prior to when I was born. And he felt that the best way to remember Eric would be to name me Eric Dolphy Mingus. There are colleges that teach my father's music, and they look at it in the clinical sense. I look at it in the sense that my father had a bunch of red wine sitting at the piano with no pants on, playing this tune, and it's very emotional.
Rolling, outpouring of unpredictable time sequences and stories and combinations of instruments